Hello, my name is Derek from Tomcat Gas Training and welcome to part 2 of this series on bending copper tube. So the bend we're going to be looking at today is this one, which is the offset bend. So, as usual on Tomcat Gas Training videos, we are getting on with it. So, let's get on with it. Now, before we dive into making this bend, it's important that we understand angles and different types of angles we're going to use when we're pipe bending. Now, the most common angles which I've already talked about are 60 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 90 degrees, 120 degrees. They're the kind of the average angles as a plumber gas engineer we use when we're bending copper tube. So the other main thing we need to understand when we are bending these angles are whether we're bending it too steep or too shallow, or whether we can fit it into the pipe bender. So before we crack on at bending angled pipe, we're going to look at how we're going to get angles, how we're going to produce something like this, which we can keep with us, and what our limitations are with a pipe bender. So let's have a look at that now. Now, first thing we're going to do is let's have a look at the limitations of the pipe bender itself. So I've just pulled a 90-degree bend and I want to do a double offset. So if I get my loose pipe, now you see the hook. Okay, so let's have a look at this first. So you see the hook, where the hook is in its position. That's the closest really you should be able to put it to this bend. Okay, because if you move it further over and you try to bend it, that end there will actually end up digging in the bend. So this really is the minimum double offset I can make. Okay. The reason why I'm going through this is why we have to use offset bend rather than double 90s. So if I do the loose pipe method, and again I put that in the center, and I can use my square and now mark the center there. Okay, so that is the minimum center mark this pipe bender will produce. So let's have a look at measuring that and see what it actually comes out at. Now I've got my set square laid out, and this is our center to center measurement. So the minimum center measurement I can make with this setup is 135 mil. Okay, so that's the center there. So round about 135 mil is the minimum double offset I can make, and this is why we have to do offset bends to get us closer than that distance. Okay, so let's have a look first at actually producing this little table I've made, which will help us to do the angles for these bends before we crack on and start actually producing these offsets. So let's have a look at making these angles. So the first thing I need to do is just draw a straight line, and it doesn't really matter how long this straight line is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 marks on it. So I'm going to put one there and one there. That I'm going to call A, and that I'm going to call B. Now the next thing I need to do is use my compass to do about 1/3 of the way down the line, and I'm just going to place the compass on the A point and do a semicircle back. Okay. Now I'm going to place the compass this time on the end of the semicircle. So the semicircle I've just done is 180 degrees. And the first angle we're going to do is 60 degrees. So now, if I dissect through those two marks with my straight line, that angle there now is 60 degrees. Now, if I wanted to do a 30 degree, I keep my compass at the same distance. So just check I haven't moved it. Okay, it's important that it's at the same distance. And I now go onto this mark again and do a mark up here. And then I go onto the 60 degree mark and do another mark. Now my distance through those two marks has now dissected the 60 degree. So that's now given me two 30 degrees. Now if I wanted to do a 120 degree, again making sure my compass is at the same distance, I go onto the 60 degree mark, put a mark, now dissect that line, that angle there now is 120 degrees. And if I wanted a 90 degree, I need to dissect those two between the 60 and the 120, because halfway between is 90. So just check and make sure. So put a mark, that hasn't moved, mark on that one, go to this one, dissect my line, and I go through that line and that now gives me 90 degrees. Now the last angle I'm going to do is a 45 degree angle. So this is 90, so half of 90 is 45. So this time I need to go longer than where I was doing before. And I need to go onto here and do a mark. And again, make sure I don't move the compass and make my other mark. And now I can dissect the two lines again. And that final angle is our 45 degrees. And that's how easy it is to find out different angles to help you when we're doing our pipe bending. Let's have a look at this 30 degree angle and see how we can use this angle to actually help us in the bending. So I've now just got the angles. So if I wanted to transfer them onto anything, I can basically get a piece of solder and I can bend it to my desired angle. I know now that roughly that piece of solder is a 30 degree angle, so that can help me do my bending. So if I wanted to transfer this angle onto my bender, so this is the 30 degree we've just made, I can place this on round about where the bending mark is, and I would bend my pipe so it's round about there. Should give me my 30 degrees. So let's have a look. Let's bend it to the mark. So the mark is in the center of the pipe. So I don't know whether you got that, but just let the spring go off, and now we can check the angle is 30 degrees. And there you go, we've just bent a perfect 30-degree angle using the solder. Now I've pulled a series of bends so we can have a look at them. So the first one, we've got a 30 degree, this is a 45 degree, this is a 60 degree, and this is the 90 degree bend. So let me try and explain why we need these different angles. So if we were to go around this 28mm pipe, okay, if we look at the 90 degree bend and we want to go around it, we're going to struggle, because if we want to pull another 90 degree bend here, it's going to be massively over the top. Now if that was a hot water pipe and that was a cold water pipe, we would need about we would need a minimum of 25mm gap between the two pipes. Okay, now we need to just worry about our starting point, because the clips would always give us the same distance. So that one would be out of the reckoning. Now if I wanted to go over using this 60 degree and I want to go around it here, again because of the limitations where the bender is, we would be looking, it's going to be up here again, so we've got another massive big difference. If we go over the 45, we're getting closer to the pipe, okay, and we should just about be able to get over that 28mm with that. But if we look at the 30 degree, okay, you could see we get tighter than we would do with the 45, okay, because the 45 would be around there and that would be closer there, so our 25mm gap. So for getting around this pipe, we would be better if we used a 30 degree angle. Now what we kind of say is, if the distance is less than 50mm, a 2-inch, then you could actually need to use less than the 30 degree angle, okay, but the less of the angle we've got, the closer we could get to it. So we've still got to make a judgment on which angle we do use, but we've always got to remember, if this is a hot pipe and a cold pipe, we need to keep them 25mm away from each other so we don't get heat transfer. And we've also got to think about, what does it look like? Does it look neat? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at these offset bends. We're going to see what the minimum offset bend we can make in the bender, okay, which will look right and work correctly. So let's start making these bends now. Now let's have a look at the minimum size we can make this 60 degree angle. So if I actually place it in the actual bender and I put the guide in, you can see we still need the hook to actually go at the beginning of the bend, or the end of that bend. But remember, our stretch is going this way, so this is our measured end. But we're going to look at how we're going to measure a certain offset. Now what we've got to do with this is we've got to actually bring the bend around here. So let's first of all stand it up and square it up, okay, and let's pull this bend around. Now we need to get that parallel and square with that. So if I look down that now, we need a set distance, we need the distance to be right there. So if I just measure centre to centre, that's 90, round about 90mm, okay. So the minimum for this 60 we can make is about 90mm because of where the hook goes in the bender. So if we take this 45 piece of pipe now, and again I need to stand it up and square it up, and again I need to bend it around about the right distance. So let's get our set square, take off the pressure, get it in square. We'll look at these a bit closer, but that one is looking around about 65 mil. Okay. Now we've got this 30 degree, so let's stand it up, square it up, and let's bend that one. Again, let's make sure we're parallel, and that one's looking something like 45 mil. Okay, so let's have a closer look at these bends and let's see what these minimum measurements actually do come out as. So if we look at this 30 degree angle first, what I've done is I've got the two set squares. The distance from the bottom to the bottom is the same as centre to centre. So centre to centre is the same as bottom or top to top. So I'm going to measure this gap here to see what they come out at. So I've put those in line with each other. We can now move that out of the way, and we have a distance of about 41 mil. Okay, so that's the first distance for the 30 mil offset. Now let's do the same for the 45 mil. Let's see what that comes out at. So that's the 45 mil angle. Let's give that a measure, see what that one comes out at. And that one's coming out about 61 mil. And now let's finish with the last one, the 60 degree one, which is nowhere near square, this bend, but there you go. It's just a way of showing you. So, and this one is about 85 mil. Okay, so that's the distances, that's the minimum pulled bend distances we've got from these different angles. Okay, now next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you how to bend this to a given measurement. So let's get on with that. Now I'm going to show you now how to do a parallel offset at 60 millimeters centers. So let's have a look and see which angle we're going to pick. So if we pick the 60 degree angle and we look at that and we place that on the line, you can see there's no way at 60 mil centers we're going to be able to use this 60 degree angle because of the actual minimum bend we can make. So that's out of the question. Now if we look at the 30 degree one first before we look at 45, you can see we can actually use this 30 degree angle, but we'd have to, the steeper, the pitch would be steeper here, or the angle would be steeper here. So, but we could use the 30 degree. If we look at the 45, we can see our minimum distance, we looked at it before, was 61 mil, or around about 60 mil. So it gives us no play whatsoever, 45 degrees for a 60 millimeter offset. So the one I'm going to use and what I'm going to show you, we'll be doing and using the 30 mil, and we'll just extend the piece of pipe before we bend it around. Okay, so let's get on with showing you how to do a parallel offset to 60 mil. Now the first thing we're going to do on this, making this offset to 60 millimeters with a 30 degree angle, is I've got a length of tube and the tube is 400 from length to length. Now this is 100 mil, so basically I've just done a mark 100 mil from our measured end. Now I'm just going to show you this because it's important where we put this in the pipe bender now. So what I've done is I've marked the 100 mil and I've put a line across the centre. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then I've got my drawing and I've got my actual piece of solder to bend to my 30 degrees. So I'll get the bender, open it up, and this is the important part about this first thing is I'm going to put the guide in. Okay, so we've got the hook over, we've got the pipe in, and this cross needs to meet where the guide and the former actually meet. So it's important, and that's going to put it in the centre of the bend for us. So I'm just going to stick my big fat head in the way just to make sure, and you can see this cross where the cross is now. So I am now going to stand it up to bend it. Well, I'll spin it around so I can bend it, and I'm just again going to check and make sure that my line and cross are exactly where the bender and the former and the guide meet, and that should put us in the centre of the bend. Now the first thing I need to do is I'm just going to pull it a little bit so it doesn't move, and then make sure I've got my 30 degrees, which I have. I'm going to place that there, so you can see that is round about, that mark I've made there is round about where the centre of the pipe needs to be. So I'm just going to pull that to something like, and again I'm just going to take the spring off and then check and make sure that our angle is somewhere like, and it is. So that's about enough now. Okay, so let's take this out of the bender and see if we actually have bend on the centre line of the pipe. You can see now that this mark has ended up in the centre of the bend where we want it to be. Okay, and that's important that we know where this centre mark is. Now then, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to place this on the line and mark where this 60mm line comes, but if I did my mark across there and then put it in the bender, it would be the wrong way. So what I've got to do is I've actually got to put it that way round to mark it. Otherwise, when I put it in the bender, I'll have my mark. So that's another important tip as well, to make sure you've actually marked it on the right side. Otherwise, we'd have to put it back on the board again and mark it again. So I'm just going to get my big fat head in the way again, and I'm going to place this on top of the black line. Okay, now I've used a marker pen, and it would be a lot easier if you used a pencil rather than a marker, but you'll be able to see it with this. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to eye up over the top and actually mark, without getting my head in the way, where this line is, going across there, and I'm then going to mark the centre again. So that's going to be my bending point. Okay, so that's where I'm going to do my bending point, and then hopefully this is going to work out correct. So I need to put this back into the bender again, because we've actually put the line in the right place. Hopefully I can now put that like that. Now again, I need to stand it up and square it up, because if I don't square it up, then I'm going to end up with a crooked bend. And now I need to pull it till that runs parallel round here. Okay, now I know the mark I've made there is round about the centre line. Okay, so it's spring back now, and it should be pretty flat. Which is pretty flat. Now, if I put that centre to centre on there, or top of the line to top of the line, it should have a 60mm. Now you can see that's slightly bent too far over, so I can just pull it back a little tiny bit, and I can now put the line on top of the line, looking down from the top. And that is a 60mm offset. And that is the end of this video, this part 2 on pipe bending. So look out for part 3, where we're going to be looking at this bend. So if you like this video, why don't you give us a thumbs up or leave a constructive comment down below. If you've not subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, then get subscribing, and don't forget to hit that notification bell because I release videos every Wednesday. And as usual guys, all I've got left to say is thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and tune in next Wednesday when you find out how to bend one of these. Cheers guys!